Hello, and welcome back to Learn It from a Layman. I'm Carl Christensen. I'm joined today for this episode by Matt. It's possible someone else will drop in, but who knows? Um, we are today discussing the basics of metabolism, um, which I think is something that the layman is familiar with, but maybe the word metabolism almost seems not layman. What do you
Well,
think,
why
Matt?
don't we start with a quick Q&A then? Carl, what is a metabolism?
Yeah, okay. Good. I'm glad you asked. As if I was, we had talked about this before. Okay, metabolism refers to all the chemical reactions that occur within the body, convert food into energy, and building blocks for cells. So essentially, this is the basic processes, biological process going on in your body to convert food into energy. And it includes breathing, circulation, digestion, um, all of the things that your body is doing. Uh, your cells in your body are functioning. They require a certain amount of energy, right? And so they take the food that you input and they convert that into an energy that can be used, and that is that process is metabolism. Make sense?
So burger processing unit, that's what the metabolism is.
We have people in all over the world. So there's some variety of stir fry processing. Um, we're actually going to be talking specifically about what foods might be better for metabolism at some point here in this podcast. So it is useful to know that there are foods and burgers. I guess we'll have to wait and find out whether or not those would be potentially good for your metabolism. Okay, so there are different components of metabolism. As I kind of already talked about, they're because it's breathing and circulation and digestion and all just the different things that your body does. Uh, it, I think frequently we it becomes, if it's in the layman's conversation, if it's something you're talking about, if you're talking about dieting or your health, um, it's it's kind of taken as one big thing. It's like, oh, my metabolism is high, my metabolism is low. And I mean, you can add all the pieces together to figure that out, I guess. But it's more, I think, useful to figure it out at the component level, right? Each specific part of metabolism contributing to the overall burn of food or, fuel in your body in order to convert it into energy. So some of the different components of metabolism are your basal metabolic rate, your BMR, not BMI, the different thing. BMR, that's the energy your body uses to maintain your vital functions. So your heart beating, your breathing, and your cell repair. Thermogenesis is the energy used to digest, absorb and process food. And then another, so a physical activity, obviously any amount of, not even just exercise, but any amount of movement, fidgeting, transportation, whatever you're doing with your body in order to move it is going to be another component of metabolism. There are variety of other factors, so those are different components of it. But as far as what affects those components, it's useful to know that your age, your gender, your muscle mass, your activity level, your diet, and your sleep all contribute to your metabolism. So the basal metabolic rate, thermogenesis, and physical activity are all biological realities that you kind of are subject to. I guess physical activity, toss that one. But basal, the BMR and the thermogenesis are things that your body's just doing. You're subject to whatever your body's uh, going to do with the fuel, and your hormones and your thyroid function and all those types of things come into play when you're trying to figure out at what rate your body's burning energy and your muscle mass and those types of things. But as far as, external factors that contribute to those, biological factors, the age, your age, your gender, your muscle mass, activity level, diet, and sleep all are going to be big factors that contribute to the different components of your metabolism. How am I doing so far, Matt?
I think that's great. Basically, your metabolism depends on almost everything.
Pretty much. I mean, it's one of those like input equals output type. You're going to be, everything you do is going to be affecting your metabolism. It is not the case, however, that you're in control, right, of all the metabolism. Like I said, you're subject to biological realities, like your genetics by factors. We'll get through into some of these. So let's dispel a couple myths to start off with. I heard early on, a long time, so I don't know, how long ago was this? 15 years ago, that
Back when science wasn't around.
well, science was different back then. Also, it turns out age affects your perception of truth.
That is a separate podcast.
Yes, exactly. No, I was told by a trainer. So I was like in the gym or something, and trainer told me that, oh, you need to snack. You need to snack all the time. It gets your metabolic rate, keeps it high. And apparently that's mostly just a myth. The thermic effect of food is something that does affect the burn in your body. The underlying metabolism rate is affected by the energy your body is using to digest food. But it's not the case that like that outweighs just overall caloric intake. So the idea that you need to eat all the time and that will somehow keep you at this level of like high metabolism just really isn't founded in science. In the way that the food that you're putting into your body does have a very measurable effect on your metabolism. And so there's one myth. You need to snack all the time in order for your metabolism to stay high and constant. No, not really. That's just not true. Frequent snacking can lead to overeating, and overeating, as we'll get down the road further, is actually very problematic when it comes to metabolism. Almost counterintuitively, it's going to flip on its head and it's going to make it worse. So if, however, snacking is going to help you control appetite and caloric intake, then great. And then the types of snacks, the type of food that you're putting into your body predictably matters as far as metabolism is concerned. Soda is a big no-no when it comes to metabolism. Biologically speaking, it doesn't fill you up. It doesn't fill the need of a lot of your biological functions.
But it's sugar and water and carbonation. What could go wrong with it?
Right, exactly. Turns out spikes your blood sugar.
Delicious.
Almost like you have a vested interest in soda, Matt.
Hey, do you want the Coca-Cola sponsorship or not?
Actually, I like a good Coke on occasion, but the on occasion is the high. It says high sugar causes fat storage. So excess sugar is converted into fat, especially in the liver and belly area, if not burned up for energy. So the idea that you can't get, that you're going to not gain weight by just drinking soda is just not true. And fructose in particular, which soda is high in, the liver converts fructose into fat. And so that's going to trigger weight gain. So,
because I'm in denial here, what are the chances that this is the science now, but the science 15 years from now will tell me that no, soda's great for you?
I don't think that that's going to be the case. I'd say we are pretty certain, and by we, I'm now lumping myself in with scientists. Everything I've read seems to be very clear cut on the causality of soda. The way that soda causes you to have bad metabolic and weight outcomes. And so at least an addiction there too, right? Anything in moderation can fit into a pretty normal diet. And that is something before I forget, I don't want to breeze over this. I'm guessing most people that are listening to a podcast about metabolism have interest in weight gain or weight loss. Most people probably weight loss. Dr. Johnny, who's not on tonight, but has those of you that have listened to the podcast for a long time, which actually a fair amount of you that have done so, his wife, Kelly Nielsen, is a registered dietitian, and I've talked to her about this before, and she has informed and credentialed and strong feelings about dieting and how that doesn't work, and that the studies essentially show that just fad dieting, if anything, causes more harm than good, and is so radically unsuccessful that it's not even worth attempting. Anyway, she has strong feelings about that. But the idea, and like I said, she's credentialed and she knows what she's talking about. So dieting and just saying and naming a particular food as the culprit for weight gain or bad health outcomes, not usually constructive and doesn't lend itself to good health outcomes or good dieting outcomes.
Yeah. Well,
So,
I
go ahead.
I get the, everything in moderation, but even with that, when we talk about some different foods, particularly sugary drinks,
Sure.
actually are just better off not.
If you don't have them.
Yeah. I mean, you can say
probably
moderation, but also it's better if you just don't.
Right. I agree. I think the problem comes actually then more like psychological and or socially than like, easily biologically, you could probably just say you're better without them, better off without them. But if you feel like you're limiting yourself or you're not able to do the social things that you want to, then all of a sudden you become mentally unhealthy. And, so there are other considerations to say,
There's a
like,
slight danger there saying that soda is important for my mental health. That leads to all kinds of excuses.
Okay, that's true.
I'm not
That is
sure
true.
that I could get behind the fact that the daily root beer matters to my mental well-being.
Right. Okay.
Now,
That's
daily
a
hot
fair point.
chocolate, that's a different story, but let's get back to metabolism.
Okay. All right. So essentially, I'm saying that occasional soda is not going to undermine you. However, if you do want to go with a disciplined approach, you're not going to be hurting without it. And biologically speaking, from a metabolism point of view, it's not doing you any favors. It's literally causing issues. So cutting out soda is going to drastically affect health outcomes. It might not, in a lot of people, and anecdotally, I've heard cutting soda can lead to dramatic weight loss. That isn't the case for everyone. And it certainly isn't the case in like a short-term solution. Like if you drop soda for a month and think I'm going to lose a bunch of weight, that might just not be the case. They said metabolism is a multi-component, multi-factors that go into it. So just hitting one, it's like whack-a-mole. You hit one mole, another one's going to pop up. So you've got to take a holistic approach on changing.
The analogy of my metabolism is an arcade game, but no, it very much is a complex system where it's a little bit unreasonable to expect a change in a moment to make a difference immediately. But
right. And it is unfortunate, so let's talk a couple of the things
that we all have metabolisms. So
it is like different people have different metabolic rates, right? So your basal metabolic rate, your thermogenesis in your body, as determined, your cells, your genetics do have there is certainly a component in our components in how quickly you burn food into energy.
And that's what we're talking about with the metabolic rate is how quickly that processes. And generally, high metabolic rate means more food into more energy faster and not into storage, meaning girth.
Right.
Whereas low
Yeah.
metabolic rate
And
means that you're more prone for the storage end of things, which is great in some climates and some situations.
right. What we don't want to do here is make anyone, and I think in general in the dietitian community, you just don't want people to feel like they are boxed in or like being told that they aren't, that there's no way that they can be healthy because of their size. You want people to feel empowered and able to make the decisions that they need to. But obviously, health and metabolism are real biological
Yeah,
realities.
and
So
just like fixating on dropping soda out isn't gonna make a difference. Fixating on just the factor of my metabolic rate, that's also gonna um,
right,
that's not gonna be great for you because your body is such a complex system. Metabolism is
right,
just one factor amongst many, but it is the
right.
factor that turns
We're
food
talking
into
about,
fuel. So we're talking about that now,
and the
and
and the
it's not
one
like
that
whack-a-mole.
and this and the reason why this matters, and the reason that you're listening to this podcast and it matters, is that like it's like I love to exercise personally, right?
What's wrong with
That
you?
is exactly. For most people, that's probably the response. It's like, what is wrong with you? There are people out there that love to do what I do, like run, swim, bike, whatever it is. But yeah, I'd
Talk
say the
about
vast
the
majority of people.
basics of endorphin addiction later and how much of a problem that is.
But like that burns calories, right? Doing that exercise, and that's one of the things that we already mentioned, and we'll talk about a little bit more. But physical activity is absolutely a component in your metabolism. However, the basic metabolic rate that you have, if you can raise that up a little bit, a constant burn is going to obviously outweigh any little spikes that you have over the course of a week or whatever. So that's why while there are components, biological components of your metabolism that you are not in control of, there are things to be aware of that can help you raise that level of slow burn in your metabolism that will have a good effect and positive effect on metabolism. So those things are your muscle mass, right? So more muscle burns more food into energy.
So you're
So
telling me it
if
is
you
healthy to be swole.
there's
That's what I heard.
probably as all of these things, there's probably a point at which that's not true. But from a metabolism rate, right? Yes, you can just do it's a mathematic calculation. It's a this much muscle burns this much energy. And
Uh,
so more.
A function of like the makeup of the muscular cells or the tissues, or is that just like, I mean, why is that? Why does more muscle mean higher metabolic rate? I
That's
mean,
a
I
good
suppose you're
question.
getting to that, aren't you?
We will get to that. Um, it does have to do with the cell makeup, the cellular makeup, and just essentially what the function of those cells is. But yeah, that is absolutely muscle mass is one of the big components of metabolism that you have some control over, right? But yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But your sleep is a big one, and that one's
I do not like to hear that unless you're about to tell me that a minimum of 4 hours of sleep is fine.
no, that's not what I was going to say.
Yes?
It no,
No.
no. Um, yeah, it turns out that sleep is a very important element of uh, having a healthy metabolism.
This sounds like
And
propaganda.
it's essentially this is how it's explained to me. It's that poor
This
sleep
is just the
leads to
mattress lobby.
it, yes, that's who it is. Poor sleep leads to increased hunger, right? So via ghrelin, and I think we talked about ghrelin back in I think Basics of Biology. Dr. Johnny talked about it. So when you have poor sleep, you are producing more ghrelin, so you're more hungry, and reduced fullness signals because of leptin. Um, So you're just more likely to overeat because the hormones in your body and the chemicals in your body are a little bit out of whack.
I
Sleep
really don't like to
helps
hear this at
regulate
all.
those.
So sleeping enough helps me feel full. Is
Yeah,
that more or less it?
because yeah, exactly. I mean, though it's not even that simple, because it is also the case that even if the caloric intake remains the same, sleep-deprived people are more likely to gain weight, meaning your resting metabolism has dropped, even if you don't eat as much, even if you don't pay attention to the ghrelin, so you don't eat more, and your body just hasn't had a chance to regulate and clear out the trash. So sleep does a lot, right? We have a Basics of Sleep podcast. There's a lot of functions of sleep, especially in your brain, and it turns out that's where a lot of this is driven from, right? Your metabolism, the amount that your body is able to produce the right hormones and regulate the thyroid and the liver functions correctly. All those things are largely regulated in the nervous system, which is reset and help to be on point when you have a good amount of sleep. So it turns out metabolism is affected greatly by sleep. So, does that make you sad?
Hmm. I sense a potential lifestyle change. This isn't like a moderation kind of thing. This is like no, you just have to get sleep.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I
Is that at all?
I didn't read any studies that were specifically said, okay, at this point you're good to go, or like, because there's obviously be at some point where like if you get 10 hours as an adult versus 7 hours.
Yeah.
I said I didn't see any studies that like showed, oh yeah, your metabolism goes up the more you. I think it's just get a healthy amount of sleep, which, as per the doctors that I've heard, is
Right.
somewhere between 6.5 to 8 hours of sleep every night. So if you're getting that, you're probably doing fine as far as your effect on metabolism is concerned. But like I said, I didn't actually read any of those studies, so they don't quote me on this. Though that could actually be the
Well,
motto
reading
of the
isn't part of your
podcast.
metabolic health either, so
Reading isn't part of my job description in this podcast. So sleep is part of it. Turns out your microbiome. Get this: the bacteria in your gut influence how effectively calories are extracted from food.
and by
So some
gut,
people,
for laymen, we mean intestinal tract.
correct, right? Your
Yes.
digestional tract, and the microbiome is essentially the bacteria that live inside your digestional tract. And in case there are those, I know we have younger listeners out there, and maybe some that haven't. It turns out you have a lot of bacteria inside you, and
No, I don't want that, nor do I want to
you actually
sleep,
do.
but that's the reality
You
of life.
You actually do want the bacteria inside you. It turns out they're very important. Your bacteria that live in your digestional tract help efficiently extract calories from food. So some people absorb and store more calories from the same diet than others.
Which
So
in most cases is a good thing. You want to be able to get more calories, meaning more
right,
energy out of your food. The
that's
less
correct.
energy
Because
you can get per bite, the more bites you need in order to get, survive, and that
right,
means the more food you have to. Anyway, so
right. Because you
that's why you
also
see
yeah.
things like probiotics being marketed everywhere
Mm-hmm.
because they're
To get
all
to,
about those little bacterias that help you extract energy more efficiently.
right, and you're also talking not only just the caloric intake, then it's also the nutritional benefits that you're getting from the food that you're taking in. So that's your body needs those nutrients, so it's going to send the signals to your brain that you're still hungry if you're not extracting the nutrients and calories that you need. So if you're just eating junk, it's just not filling you up. Your body's just not getting the nutrients it needs. So the microbiome can be very positive in the way that it affects your metabolism in that way, that like in regulating the amount of food that you feel like you need to take in, even if it's not the actual metabolism itself, I guess, strictly speaking, which we already defined, is the process of burning and converting energy into or food into energy. But in regulating the food that you need to create it into energy, that microbiome is important. So Okay. Uh, mm, Here, let me. This one, this could be its own podcast, and maybe I've mentioned it before, but maybe I haven't. It turns out that, like,
Listen for another idea.
if you are not a big um, exercise guy or girl, or if you don't like to get out there and run, or whatever it is, if you
I feel targeted right now.
the amount that you still like, the activity that you have in the day still absolutely matters. Like
Okay.
fidgeting, standing,
Wait, I can
taking a
have
few.
a high metabolic rate by fidgeting.
It
I love
absolutely
this
affects it.
plan. Tell me
Yes.
more.
Well, so that's the thing I was going to get to. So, um, I don't know if they've done studies on fidgeting, and I don't know where I lie, where I sit in the
I feel I shouldn't
fidgeting.
be surprised about that, but I am.
But the but it turns out the point I'm getting at with this fidgeting thing is that you're going to fidget a lot more effectively if you're standing. And standing itself, independent of fidgeting, is a big boost to your metabolism.
Can we have a
And
separate
that's
podcast on fidget effectiveness?
we should. Um, the stand-up desk, the standing desk, if you will,
Yeah,
is
that
something
thing.
I've been a proponent of. Let's see, how long? Let's see, 14 years I've had a standing desk.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and it is for those. This is only tangential to this metabolism podcast, but
What you're setting up for
it
is
is
that you were doing fidgeting before it was cool.
exactly. I no Standing for work. So sitting for work is an independent risk factor for heart disease. Um, yeah,
Wait,
after you control for weight and eating and exercise and genetics, sitting for long periods of time, which are your job, and some jobs makes you do it, but a lot of jobs it's just a choice that you're making. It is an independent risk factor to have a heart attack.
huh. Our
So,
jobs are
which means
literally killing us.
if you don't opt for a standing desk, and you can, then you're choosing to have that risk factor applied to your health.
This is one of the grimmer
So,
podcasts we've done, especially since I think you just told us it's all our fault for sitting down.
well, like I said, I've been a proponent of standing desks for a long time.
Yes,
But
you're
if
very
you're,
much cooler than we are.
it's a very simple. And for those of you that think, okay, standing desks are very expensive, I don't know. I'm gone down such a rabbit hole here. We're supposed to be talking about metabolism.
Yeah.
However, once again, to the standing desk community, or the,
I love that there is a standing desk community. Thank you. But yeah,
I'm,
totally
they're taking over
objective
the world.
scientific study has somehow related this to metabolic rate.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so how did this work?
Okay. Standing burns more calories. Your body is flexing more muscles. You have more opportunity to fidget, and your metabolism therefore raises.
Okay.
It is. I don't even know if it's statistically significant, but it is absolutely measurable. I did read at one point it's something like 5 calories an hour or something like that.
As
You're
opposed to
not going.
sitting where you burn what?
Oh, I mean like 5 calories more per hour,
Oh,
like over whatever your
okay.
basal metabolic rate is. Standing's
Okay.
going to raise it by a fractional percent, but
Well, and
it does
okay.
raise it. And and like I said, when you're standing, fidgeting is easier, and
Yeah.
fidgeting raises that as well. So independent of standing. So
Yeah.
well, I've really gone down this road. I didn't really mean to focus on this as much as
So
I
this
have.
is the thing. As much as I joke about hating exercise, and I do, the one that I do kind of like is weightlifting. And one of the
Right.
principles that you talk about in that is um, the way that you lift and the amount of, for example, when you lift a free weight, you're using a whole bunch of muscles not only to lift the weight, but also to stabilize it as you press it up. When you work on a
Mm.
machine, you're lifting the same weight, but you don't have to worry about the stabilization. So many of your muscles don't work the same way. So I'm guessing that we're running into a similar parallel with standing versus sitting. You have a
Yeah,
whole bunch of tangential muscles that are doing stabilization work constantly. That does burn
right.
energy, and that can affect your metabolic rate, and apparently is a factor for heart disease, which I didn't want to hear,
Absolutely.
but you've told me
Yeah,
that
no,
now.
you did.
So I
It's
have to look into
controllable.
this.
You got to do it. Stand up.
What I just heard is
I
work is killing me.
No, you can stand. I'm telling you, it's a thing that you can do. Unless you're like in a submarine or well, I mean, I can probably stand. You can stand in submarines.
Right? Submarines
Um,
don't have chairs.
unless you're an astronaut. Look, I don't know. There might be jobs exist where you can't stand, but the vast majority of people that are sitting for work are choosing to do so.
Yes,
Anyway, this
a
is a good
zero
opportunity.
G environment would be a little bit separate, but okay. Let's talk
Yes.
about more
Okay.
metabolic influencing factors.
Yes. Okay. So this is a good opportunity to quickly revisit the question you had earlier about why muscle burns more than fat,
Okay.
because muscle tissue is metabolically active. So
Okay.
your
Meaning
muscles,
it's
uh,
doing stuff
exactly, it requires
as
more
opposed
energy
to
to
fat,
maintain it.
which is just kind of there.
Pretty much, essentially, it says muscle tissue is constantly working, even at rest, to maintain its
Hmm.
structure and function.
Oh,
So it's it in order to maintain itself, it is burning more calories than fat. So at rest, a pound of muscle burns 6 calories per day at rest. A
okay.
pound of fat burns 2 calories.
I'm surprised
So
it burns anything. I thought fat would have
yeah.
figured out how to just be fat and
Yeah,
something new every
eventually.
day.
So it doesn't sound like a big difference, obviously 6 versus 2, but that is 3 times as much, right? Like, um, so if you increase your muscle by 5 pounds, your the amount of burn that you just increased is 3 times uh, as much. So anyway,
Yeah.
that that is important to understand, which is I wanted to revisit it very quickly. Um, all right, let's get back to two other things here. So one of the big things that that affects metabolism, probably one of the main things that you kind of don't have control over, but I'm mentioning it because you have a little control over it, is your hormones. Um, the a lot of hormones in your body that regulate a lot of your biological functions, right? Um, the one specifically that you might have a little bit of control over is cortisol. Um, cortisol, I think it's cortisol. It's a
Is that
stress
what you,
hormone.
isn't that an allergy medication?
I hope not. Um, the cortisol is the stress hormone. So if you are stressed out all the time, and once again, that's not always your fault, but if you can do something about it, if there's
Huh.
any way to change your life such that your stress levels come down, your metabolism will go up because, because cortisol promotes fat storage. And as we just
Interesting.
learned, fat uh, is not as useful as muscle and burning calories. And as we'll talk about a little bit more later, it turns out obesity is self-defeating in the way that obesity actually suppresses metabolism. Like even though when you're obese, your body's actually developed a fair amount of muscle to have to carry around the extra weight. The effect that obesity has on your organs and on your biological functions in general suppresses the burn of calories. So it's this
Interesting.
unfortunate, yeah, it's an
It is
unfortunate
like
cycle.
a vicious cycle. Yeah. The more,
It is
yeah.
absolutely.
So how do you break out of that? Apparently eat, sleep, and exercise. Like eat good,
It's a
sleep good, exercise.
right.
It feels
Uh,
like I've heard that
right.
before, but I've never wanted to believe it.
Right. So, and that's where I get like, so I said, Dr. Johnny's wife, I would, Kelly, she's a registered dietitian, uh, does not
Yeah, we could
recommend
just call
diets.
her Kelly the dietitian. It doesn't have to be
Kelly, the
Dr. Johnny's
dietitian,
wife.
Dr. Johnny's, well, she hasn't been, okay, whatever. You're right. Kelly, the dietitian that I mentioned earlier, does not recommend like a specific diet. And it says that those are just going to backfire. What I
Okay.
recommend, because I don't actually know what Kelly would recommend
As a
in
layman, you're
general.
just recommending stuff. That's fine.
This is my layman, non-credentialed dietitian approach to food.
Yeah. Well,
Is
people don't
that
listen
it
to this
isn't
for credentials.
exactly it isn't the food that's doing it, it's the lifestyle. It's the sleep, it's the stress, it's the lack of activity, the degree to which you are choosing to be sedentary, and then of course food's a component, but it's like it's not the food specifically that you're eating, it's the amounts, it's the degree to which you are not caring about how your body feels, and just eating for the sake of eating as opposed to eating for for biological process. Yeah, it's obviously how most people eat for some degree of pleasure, but like I said, when you lose control of all that, that's when you are really suppressing your metabolism, and are you getting that vicious cycle where it's like, okay, I'm now obese, and it turns out getting out of that is even harder than it would have been before. So,
No, well, and that's not to say that it can't be done. It's just,
oh yeah,
I mean,
sure,
these are
right,
the physiological patterns.
right, exactly, yeah, and that's I want people to feel empowered and not judged, but I'd say that it's a lifestyle change. It can't just be, well, I'm eating better. Well, great, I'm glad, but that how long is that going to last? As opposed to I've changed. I work, I work standing up. I ride my bike to work.
I still
I
believe that that's just like desk propaganda.
You can look up all the studies. I'm telling you, there are a host of them, and it's not just the standing desk lobby. That's not even a thing. Um, because I have a standing desk that is made up of a storage rack, and I've had it for
Uh-huh.
12 years. So. And okay, anyway, let's visit on a couple other things. I thought something that was really interesting, something that I think most people do know: age affects metabolism, and the degree to which it affects metabolism is pretty stark. So when you're young, obviously, as we all know, uh, children can eat whatever they want, and
So
they
they
burn right
absolutely
off.
can't, but whatever.
Okay, all right, you're right. Okay, childhood obesity is a problem. That's a good point. I shouldn't have said that, but I mean to the degree that like an adult has to be more careful about what they eat. A child, while they absolutely need to watch their nutrients, the metabolism is significantly higher. Your growth, the cells are super active, and so the metabolic, the basal metabolic rate is very high. Metabolism slows about 3% per year until you're in your 20s.
Huh.
So your young children, super high metabolism, and then as much as you might think a teenager has sky high metabolism, or they do, but not compared to like an infant, because or a toddler. So but metabolism slows until you're in your 20s. Between 20 and 60, metabolism is pretty static.
Stable.
Yeah,
Between
it
20
but
and 60?
yeah, exactly. It's pretty wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
It
No, that's
says
great. So
recently.
until age 59, I can eat just as many donuts as I did when I was 25, is what I just heard.
Well,
So,
this recent research shows metabolism stays remarkably stable from 20 to 60 when adjusted for body size and muscle mass. So the
okay.
research is bearing out the fact that like between 20 and 60, if you feel like, oh, I think there are exceptions to this. Obviously, like I said, hormonal changes, menopause in women, there are potentially issues where your metabolism absolutely will change. But as a rule, by and large, 20 to 60, your metabolism is going to stay relatively constant.
Yeah.
Drop
Hmm.
maybe less than 1% a year, something like that.
Okay. So, and
Um,
that's just baseline. That's independent of all other factors.
Correct. Exactly. So,
Okay. Do I
uh,
need to sleep as much as I did at 25?
well, that's a good question. I do think that uh, obviously the amount that you need to sleep, right, generally decreases a little bit as you get older, And so I'd imagine that you can actually sleep less and metabolism will stay as constant still.
Yeah.
If you're older. Anyway, I don't know. It's a good question. Okay. After 60, what were you saying?
Nothing.
Okay. After 60, metabolism slows down. You got hormonal changes and muscle loss that you just really can't counteract. I mean, obviously you can try, and you should try in order to
you
maintain.
in any of these inevitable biological processes can be more or less pronounced depending on your lifestyle habits. So if you're used to exercising, like not me, it's going to go different for you as things do start to change and shut down.
Right. But yeah, you have lower energy needs, so because your metabolism is dropping and it drops between 1% and 2% per year as you age past your 60s, into your 60s and past. So that's age is a big factor. Gender, like I said, male versus female, it is absolutely the case, and it is entirely unfair. But male testosterone helps burn food. It turns it into energy. So there's no question that higher testosterone. It does. It's absolutely unfair. But anecdotally, you may have heard a husband and a wife talk about trying to lose weight or whatever together, and the man doesn't even do a good job on the diet, and in the first week loses like 5 pounds, and the woman who's holding herself strictly to the diet, and like after a month she's lost 2 pounds. It's unfair, but it is the reality that like the testosterone and just the degree to which men have more muscle is going to maintain a higher basal metabolic rate, and therefore they're going to burn through fat quicker. So
that just seems incredibly unfair.
Yeah, especially I mean, given the social who cares about social stuff, whatever. Health wise, men have things that are actually working against them as well. Men
various,
well, I mean,
oh, never mind. We'll just let that be that.
Okay. Men's biology is set to put fat more quickly on the abdomen versus women. I'm speaking in generalities. That's not maybe ever in the case for everyone, but as a general rule.
Insulation and padding, we're good at that.
Right. Well, it turns out the problem is that when men do put that padding and that insulation on their abdomen, that has a significantly higher risk factor for heart disease again, and other bad health outcomes. Women who really don't like the fact that their legs have gotten big or their backside, whatever it is, it turns out that fat stored in your legs is significantly less likely to end your life prematurely than fat on your abdomen. And that's just the reality. So the fact that men can burn it off quicker, that's great. But as soon as they put it back, it's going to contribute to them dying younger. Whereas women, if they put it back and it's going onto their legs, okay, that's a bummer. Like if you feel like it's a bummer, I guess, like it doesn't have to be, but it also isn't going to affect your lifespan, probably.
Did you just say leg fat is the one that kills men?
No. Is that what I said? If that's what I said,
I don't know.
That's not what I meant.
You said
I meant abdomen.
Abdominal fat kills men.
Not abdominal.
Like any of this.
Okay. And then we'll get back to food here. So one of the things that I think I mentioned early on in this podcast is the type of food that you intake absolutely affects the metabolism that you have. And so that's called the thermic effect of food. Well, okay, those things probably aren't synonymous, but the thermic effect of food is the degree to which energy, the body uses energy to digest, absorb, and metabolize that food. So the thermic effect of food, TEF, also known as food-induced thermogenesis, and that is the amount of energy that is used to process the food in your body. Something that I think a lot of people have heard of is 0-calorie foods, essentially, or negative calories, like celery or something like that. This is a related concept. Yeah, what do you say? Celery is one of the worst things in the world. I mean, not a hot take either. I mean, that is absolutely scientifically backed.
Yeah, I agree with that. Nobody should have to deal with celery.
Yeah, exactly. But the degree to which you intake food that has a higher TEF, thermal effect,
Yeah.
the more that your body's actually going to burn in order to use it. So, for example, protein, any high food high in protein, any protein that you're taking, any grams of protein you're taking in your body, they have the highest TEF. It's around 20 to 30% of the calories present in that food that your body needs to use to digest it. So that's the highest. So you obviously your eggs, your lean meats, those types of things are going to be the ones that affect that most positively. Carbs, a moderate TEF around 5 to 10%, and fats have the lowest TEF at around 0%. Sometimes your body does nothing. It's like, well, there's nothing to do here. We'll move on. So that's like if you're intaking a bunch of fat, that's that's going to have the thermic effect of food on your body is going to be potentially nothing or almost nothing. So your body's the 10% that your body's supposed to be using to process your food is now 0. And that's a problem.
Love that.
Yeah. So whereas protein, it's now 20 to 30%. So you've essentially doubled. It says on average about 10% on just kind of a relatively normal diet. So if you increase your protein intake, you're doubling the amount of calories that your body has to use to burn those calories that you're intaking. So other things that can influence TEF, this one, I don't even almost want to say it, but they say that larger meals can have a higher TEF. That's problematic.
Yeah.
Because larger meals also means you're taking in more calories in general. So I'd be careful with that. Apparently it does raise.
Absolutely.
But the big one here is the meal composition. So obviously the nutritional level of food. So if you're eating food high in fiber, absolutely is going to increase the TEF. So your body has to do more work to process that food than it does obviously fat, for example. It's doing nothing. So that high protein, high fiber diet is going to do a great job in raising the level of calories and metabolism needed to burn through it.
So I didn't hear carbs in there. I heard protein and fiber.
Well, I said, where'd that go? Carbohydrates. 5 to 10%.
Oh, it wasn't there. Okay.
Yeah, 5 to 10%. I just didn't dwell on it. Carbs, I don't demonize carbs. I don't think anyone should. Yeah, well, a lot of people do. I think demonizing carbs is silly. That's about your average, like 5 to 10%.
Somebody's got to take the fall.
Like, sure. All right, don't go around only eating breadsticks. Okay, like that's probably not a good idea. But,
why? You can get unlimited of them at Olive Garden. The economic health benefits are probably outweigh the metabolic hit. Like, oh, never mind. I don't want to go here.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, carbs are fine. Like I said, going back to Kelly, the dietitian, fit it in your diet, be smart. But the idea, a fad diet or any specific, like I can't eat this, don't eat that, it's generally doomed to failure and probably, a whiplash. I'm only going to not succeed. You're going to go. It's going to end up being worse than it was before. So change your lifestyle. Change your lifestyle instead of like diet should change with lifestyle, not not just independent of lifestyle, because trying to change your diet independent of changing your lifestyle is doomed to failure for like 90-something% of people. So
just being Debbie Downer here all over the place about making us work hard to
right,
maintain a healthy metabolism.
yeah.
Tell us something positive and easy, like the benefits of I don't know. What's an easy way to start making some of the changes?
Well, I already said about the standing desk, so
Just the standing desk
we'll
lobby
go
is
right
strong.
back
Who
to the
are we
standing desk.
sponsored by here, by the way? Some furniture company?
Um,
And if we are, how
right.
come I haven't
I
actually
wish.
received? Never mind.
Well, that's you can negotiate your contract at a different date.
I might not do that.
Yeah, there are things that you can do. Before I omitted something right at the beginning of the podcast, so I'm sounding silly to add it right now, but I'm going to do it here at the end here anyway because I wanted to get to it. Metabolism has two main processes: catabolism and anabolism. Did I say that?
Wait,
one?
say that again.
Anabolism.
Oh,
There are two.
yeah.
Yeah, it is
What was the first one?
Catabolism. Catabolism.
With a P.
Catabolism is
Okay,
catabolism, not pulism. Catabolism.
got
And
it.
that's a breaking down of molecules. So that's releasing energy by breaking down carbs, fats, and proteins into glucose. And anabolism is building and repairing tissues. It turns out both of those, catabolism and anabolism, are going to be done more. So metabolism is going to rise the more active you are. And so that's the answer to your question is, like I said, you don't have to love running or swimming or biking or lifting weights in order to increase the activity level that you have. And I think that's the important lesson that I want you to have. Like, I would love it if you could change your lifestyle such that, like, you promote the best potential biological and medically speaking, like, outcome that you can have. But I don't know that's going to happen for everyone, and that's probably fine. What you want to do is make it so that you are living a life that's allowing you to be healthy and productive, right? And so metabolism is going to be a component of that, because it's like, if you're slowly rolling down a hill for years, eventually things aren't going to go well.
Get to the
So
bottom
you
of
got
the
to start
hill?
right.
Well,
Well, yeah, and if the bottom of the hill is 6 feet under, we got a
that got
problem.
even grimmer. Wow.
Whereas, like a quick steep incline, nobody runs up that hill. Like, nobody. Well, almost nobody. I do on occasion run up
Yeah,
steep
nobody.
hills, but
Boy, you're extra special.
like, you don't like nobody likes to run up steep hills. Whereas, like, a
Correct.
very general moderate incline, most people just, it doesn't affect people. And that's what metabolism does for you, right? Raise that metabolism. It's going to do that slow burn for you, so that instead of having to think, oh, I got to spend an hour at the gym today, you can think, well, it'd probably be good if I got 20 minutes of exercise in. Great. And if you don't, at least you're not, rolling downhill forever. So build that up by more activity, more sleep, eat a more balanced diet. Look at those fruits and vegetables, like they matter, and lean meat and those types of things. So
Yeah. Well, and massive lifestyle change doesn't happen at once, and it's generally not wise to try to do it all at once. But it is
right,
just like kind of your metaphor of a gentle incline. Yeah, you can start to make change, and
right.
if
And
it
I
starts
also
with a
want
standing desk, we actually don't get a financial kickback for that. At least I
not
haven't.
yet,
Um,
not yet.
but
But by the time that
something that makes you a little more active than you were yesterday is something that'll be good. So
right, like, and that's even for people that are, like I said, genetics has an impact. Hormones, other life situations that you don't necessarily have full control over can affect some of this. So don't feel like we're judging you, or people are like, just do whatever action is possible for you to in your situation in order to take positive, to move in the positive direction. So instead of a
or
very
stay
downer
positive
podcast,
or maintain positive wherever you're at.
exactly, like,
But
because if your thyroid has serious issues, go to the doctor and get that helped out. You're not like, trying to, exercise. Like if there are other health issues, get them taken care of. Go to a doctor. But like for those of us that like myself, I don't
Go
have
see
any serious
Johnny.
medical issues. Right? Go see Johnny. Like that's where if don't let those be an impediment to doing something positive, essentially, I guess what I'm saying. Even in those scenarios, you have some degree of like, I can do this. I can, walk. I can park further away in the parking lot and walk further into the store, or whatever. So
I really don't like this life advice you're giving.
and for our next podcast, I'll talk about biking
Basics
to work
of parking.
And, well, I don't know if you remember, Matt, but one of the first podcasts we did, we talked about
not
solving.
able to forget any of these, so go ahead.
We talked about solving the world's problems, and I talked about greenhouse gases and how a lot of the greenhouse gases and a lot of emissions from cars are driving the last mile. So like in inner cities, trying to find parking or whatever else, something like that, just sitting in traffic. And my recommendation was park a mile away and run.
Yeah, I remember how many listeners this podcast used to have back then.
Yeah, that podcast alone almost doomed us.
Right.
But now we have 21,000 subscribed listeners on Spotify. Our most popular podcast almost has 100,000 listens. All of our podcasts get thousands of downloads. So we appreciate that you guys appreciate us for whatever reason. We try to do a good job, even though last podcast, I didn't even have the right microphone turned on and I sound like I was yelling from like halfway across the room. So
I thought that was just what you are doing most of the time.
I should. It'd be more entertaining that way.
Should we do a quick summary and maybe...
Yeah. Okay. So once again, metabolism is all the chemical reactions in your body. It converts food into energy. There's a BMR. That's the energy your body uses to maintain vital functions. There's thermogenesis, energy used to digest, absorb, and process food. And there's physical activity. There's different components of metabolism, and you're not in control of all of them, but you're in control of some of them. And it turns out the ones that you should focus on probably after this podcast is sleep, standing up for your desk. Do it now.
It's basic activity level. It doesn't have to be a standing desk. Yeah, seriously, what sponsorship did you line us up for, and why am I not seeing anything out of it?
Soon, I'm telling you. Yeah, and then activity, and then the food that you're intaking. Yeah. So cut out the soda, eat more fruits and vegetables, and you'll be on a good path. So you're going to succeed. I believe in you.
Unless you're already succeeding, in which case keep it up. So
yeah, exactly. So
and if you're a man, lose that belly fat, because apparently it's lethal, which I don't like to hear.
It is lethal, and so don't underestimate the need to drop that. So okay. Anyway, join us next podcast. I teased this a couple episodes ago about having a CFO on the podcast. I've now talked to said CFO, and I think he's coming on, I don't know, in a month or two to talk to us about a variety of financial terms and whatever else. So
I just had a great idea. After the CFO, let's do one on UFOs.
You go ahead, Matt. You tell us about UFOs.
Stay tuned.
Right. Sounds good. See you next podcast.